Today, we're going to be talking about a startling fact. 60%, 60 to 70%, sorry, even higher, of all change initiatives fail. But why? And more importantly, what can you do? Now, contrary to popular belief, this is not because of poor strategy. I have watched dozens, hundreds of companies on the big stage that try to implement changes that fail, right? 60%, 60 to 70% of those change initiatives fail. And it comes down to something simple yet complex. It's because they ignore the human component. They forget about the human element and the complexity that comes with change. Hi, my name is Crystal Brown, and I'm a co founder of Korero Solutions, a company that's designed to help you realign your team in a strategic way that gets real change. So, we offer coaching, team training, and a variety of other options to help make the human side of business not only humane, but work with the business side. The reason that we wound up getting into the change management element of all of the stuff that we do is because for years we saw that when we would get called in to do mediations or facilitations or coaching sessions, so many issues came back to mismanaged change. They had fantastic processes. They brought in experts that were great at coming up with strategy and budgeting. And if you were to look at these plans, they're absolutely beautiful. And you think, what could go wrong? The answer was always how they managed the people, how they brought the people in. And there's a really high cost to this because often people aren't just investing a couple weeks. Sometimes it's years in these change initiatives. Like I said, bringing in these experts, their whole leadership team is involved just for things to go sideways. So, this high cost of ignoring the emotional side results in projects silently derailing, right? People aren't saying things out loud because individuals and whole teams at times are disengaged. Sometimes groups even openly oppose the changes. We can see it right now with the back to work that's still going back and forth years after we had sent people home and are asking them to come back. Bigger than this, though, there's also that logical resistance that is just innate within people, right? It masks the fear, it masks the grief. It comes out as wanting to disengage or, well, what's in my power, right? What do I have control over? We call this the locus of control. But like, what is my sphere of control? Because I am afraid. What are the implications? And we'll get into that a little bit more here. People also wonder at the top, right? Like I've had this discussion with a few leaders in the past, but they ask like, why aren't they getting that? This new process, this new system, oh my goodness, it's going to be so fantastic. Their lives are going to be so much easier. If you're here joining me live and you've heard this before, right? Why won't they get on board with the change? It's going to make their lives better. Hit that like button, leave a post in the comments. Um, this is so common, right? The leadership, the change management team, they understand the ins and outs. They get this. They've had time to process it. So why aren't they getting it? Because they don't understand. So what if we did this instead? Right? What if looking at things as resistance, we use it as valuable data and insight? During my certificate program in change management, I was taught you should ignore the people that don't buy in. Eventually, they're going to get on board or they're going to quit. That's terrifying because that is a lot of wisdom that you are letting walk out the door and you're not capturing. So look at that resistance as valuable data, valuable insight. What's going on? Along with planning that strategic journey, what if instead you plan for the emotional journey just as hard and just as in depth as you look at your budget? All right, jumping back into it, looking to make sure that our teams are engaged, or sorry, um, if there is that resistance, looking at it as valuable data, planning for the emotional journey, the same as you're going to plan for that budget and those deliverables, and then looking at what if the buy in was not just for the steps, but for the people, right? You want buy in of the hearts and the minds, the heart and the logical side, right? That emotion and the brain piece. And you might be thinking, okay, that's great. How will I know? And I just saw a comment come in. Transparency, effective communication. Yes, thank you, Allison. Tying that change to mission and roles, acknowledging people's concerns. Yes, all part of change management, but too often forgotten, or we only capture the people that are really loud, right? So those signs, all right, so looking at those signs of resistance, right? This won't work. We've tried this before. This is too complicated. Underneath the surface, that's where we have to dig because this is when we're not hearing things, it can really go off track. So, no matter if your people are shaking their heads in meetings, be very cognizant that there is a fear of incompetence. There's a fear of loss of identity. And there's a massive fear, especially generationally, of this feeling of being left behind, right? Becoming irrelevant because of these changes. So instead of just listening to what people are saying and listening to whoever the loudest person is in the room, look at body language as a first sign, right? Who's checked out in meetings? Who's just giving you yeses, but then they have the eye rolls. Or a really good one is those side conversations, right? The meeting after the meeting, those very dangerous meetings where if you don't get ahead of them, if you don't know what's being said during them, this is where alliances can form and groups can just outright start resisting the change. Or there's almost that like gang mentality that starts coming out. You also have to look at these burnout signals, right? I spoke to one company, they've been going through continuous changes for 3 years. 3 years of new processes, new symptoms, new members of the leadership team. Yes, 100% there was necessary change to be made in the organization, but the people that had been there for an extended period were on an emotional roller coaster, waiting to see, am I going to get fired this round? Am I now going to be in charge of a team? Am I now under somebody that used to work for me? What is going on? Change fatigue is a real epidemic that's happening right now. So look for those burnout signals and don't blame it on, well, they just can't handle the work. This emotional roller coaster of change is starting to get to people, and we're really starting to see the cracks form right now. So that's all great. We're going to recognize this human component, but what can we do? Name it to tame it. That's going to be your first one here. So name it to tame it. Say it out loud, address the elephant. I'm hearing concerns about what's going on, about these changes being made, about the new system that we're implementing. What's going on? Help me understand your perspective. Or like it sounds like there's some grief about losing this individual, about downsizing. Like, what are your fears? Let's get them on the table and discuss them. I understand my logic, but you may not. So let's gain some clarity. Create those spaces where people can have these conversations, right? Town halls, unless you're willing to put your hand up and speak in front of sometimes hundreds of people, you don't really have the opportunity to not only ask a question, but get a genuine response that's not been weeded out by whoever is monitoring the email that day, right? Understanding what are you worried about that you haven't said, right? Instead of doing the massive town halls every time, having some of those smaller groups that if you have concerns, let's sit down and have a genuine conversation. You have to capture people that aren't willing to just email the president that they have an issue because they don't want a target on their back. They're already afraid, right? If I raise my hand, all of a sudden it's going to be my name on the chopping block next. True or not, humans go to that fear, right? If I lose my job, I can't pay for my house, I can't pay for my kids' education, I can't pay my vet bills, whatever it is, that is real for them. So understanding that emotionally they have to come along with you on this journey and have a very safe space to speak up without repercussions. Recognizing as well that some people need those morning rituals, right? Acknowledging that what's ending, what's ending right now before pushing into what's starting, what's coming new, right? If somebody's been working on a system for 20 years, 10 years, some of these systems have been around forever. And I mean, AOL is just getting canceled. That's been around for a long time, right? All of a sudden, that loss, you may not think it's logical, but people need time to process that. That was their comfort zone. That's what they've been using since they started here. Uh, to give you another example, if you're moving buildings, somebody may have purchased a house, started a family, their kids are in school. They understand the neighborhood, they understand the roadways. So even if it doesn't seem logical, they've set their whole lives up around that building. So moving locations could be a real struggle for them. Where we start to see things flip is asking and fully understanding how to answer what is in it for me from their shoes, from their perspective. So, the person that you're trying to essentially sell this change to, yes, you do have to be a salesman here, is understanding what is in it for them. And if there's concerns, if there's objections, how are you going to help them through that process? Right? I'm concerned that I can't learn a new system. Okay, acknowledging, right? And there's a lot of skills that go into this, into these conversations. But then getting to, well, what do we need? Like what do you need? How can we support you? Right? Some people will still resist. Then you need to get into some of those deeper conversations and listen, right? Truly listen to those feelings that are far beyond the words, getting underneath. Okay, it's going to be hard. Dig, dig, dig deeper and deeper. Once you can get these people on board, they're going to be your salespeople. They're going to be those cheerleaders that start to go, oh my gosh, I get it. And it's going to make our lives so much easier. So I know you were kind of on board before, but you should really be on board. Like we can we can just change everything. Our lives are going to be easier. But without understanding the what's in it for me and without acknowledging the feelings beyond the words, you're not going to get there. So really slow down, right? These conversations aren't going to happen overnight. Like I was saying before, some of these change management initiatives, they've taken place over years of conversations before the staff even find out. I mean, as it should be. Do you want to keep telling your teams every single time that, oh, we're thinking about this or we're thinking about this? No, absolutely not. You want to make the roller coaster worse. Be fully transparent on every conversation that you're possibly having about every opportunity. But bringing them into the conversation when things start to get serious allows them to do that emotional processing for a longer period of time versus trying to rush it within a few months because now you have deliverables. right? Pull the change back, start including the human element far earlier. So, when Allison greatly put in, like, acknowledging their concerns, all of that, it only works if you do it sooner. Well, I shouldn't say only. So I'll tell you one more thing. But the earlier that you can do this, the better it's going to be, right? Being able to link that emotion, the strategy, that is what is going to create the lasting change. Now, I have one quick tip at the end, but before we wrap things up today, I wanted to let you know that we have a 14-day program that we just launched. It's going to give you all kinds of tools and skills when you think, how am I going to have these conversations? Well, my staff are already disengaged, or I have this one team member that it's like I just can't break through to, like they're just not getting it. We have a tool in that 14-day program for you. So reach out to me in the DMs, and let me know if you want that program. We're going to be posting about it as well. Um, I was not ahead today. Sorry, I'm running out right after this. I'm going to post it in here so that you can go right from this live and go and check that out to get those tools, to get those skills, because some of these conversations, they're not easy. They're hard. What to do, where to go when there is that resistance. So go check out that 14-day program. We have lots of information in there for you to give you a hand. Um, oh, Allison asked, what if the change is going to make things harder? Change tied to financial challenges to lead to making things harder, at least in the near term. Not all change is easier. Sometimes it does make things harder, but being as transparent as you can and pulling them into those conversations, again, having the expertise and knowledge to know where to dig and how to pull them in. Um, because this was it's that truth that you know, but you wanted like some actual stats to back up in order to get people on board, in order to get buy-in to decisions. What is the most important isn't necessarily that they get their way. What is far more important is that they feel understood. And I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but this is proven that if people feel understood, if they feel heard, if they feel valued, even if they do not agree with the change being made, they are far more likely to not only agree to it, but to also follow through and for that change, that initiative, that solution to be effective. So remember, it's not about changing what you're doing or the outcome. Of course, if issues come up and get raised, please don't ignore them, but ensuring people feel heard and deeply understood and valued, even if it's change and not popular, like downsizing an organization, they're going to get it. Okay, so massive, massive, that's the emotional part here. Wish I could teach all of it, but again, reach out if your teams are struggling with this. So what I was going to say previously is you can go back. If your organization may have flopped at this part, lots of them do. I mean, that statistic, 60 to 70%. So if you're thinking, oh man, we're part of that 60 to 70%. It's okay. You're in good company with many fantastic companies out there. You can go back. You can have those conversations. You can create those morning rituals to acknowledge what has happened and being willing to step up and say, yeah, you know what? We didn't do a great job at that. That is okay. But being able to lean into that, being able to take the step back, and yes, everyone wants to do the rah rah, this was fantastic. But even if you have a portion of your team that is still stuck a year back when you announce the change, they can hold things up and burn money. Boy, can they burn money on being slow to buy into processes, slow to buy into systems, talking outside of work about the failed change management, about how terrible this is for clients. right? That's the worst thing that could possibly happen. So even if you're already at the change, if you think you're at the finish line, but you still see there's resistance in the rear view mirror, flip a U-turn. Go back and pick those people up and start the drive. And you may have to drive at their speed to bring them back up to that finish line with you. When people feel understood, right, even if they don't get their way, they're likely to buy in. They're likely to stick with solutions if they feel heard, even if mistakes were made in the past.